Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Getting High on Leadership series. I'm your host, Rob Sanchez, and we've got the author of the book sitting right next to me, Mr. Paul Karasik. Paul, today we are talking about your section, Leaders Are Healers. As we make our journey through the book, I think this is an important stop, and this topic could warrant probably multiple episodes, so we'll try to keep it concise, right? Where can we dig into this aspect of looking at leadership as healing, or considering your role as a leader as a healing art?
Well, one of the most difficult things we have to do as human beings is face reality. Nobody wants to do it. It's epidemic. You're going to die. It's true. And the fact is, you don't know when you're going to die. You may die today. You may die tomorrow. You might die in 30 years. You might die in 5 years. You don't know when you're going to die. But everybody lives life as if they're never going to die. Because if they face the fact that they're going to die any moment, could be any moment, it would change their sense of security, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into the motives for that, but nobody wants to face reality.
There's
I know you don't like it.
Element right there.
Yeah, and not only stoic, but denial. I mean, just unable to. So, what is this reality I'm referring to in this chapter? I'm referring to the reality that people come in and create conflict. And that is just the facts of life. You're going to have conflict in your business, in your organization, in your team. And to overlook it, or to do a bypass, or to say it's not happening is not going to help. But if we approach this chapter from the point of view of it's always going to happen, and I need to find a way to address this, then I need to look at this in a little more depth.
There's no way to avoid it, so it's only time to turn towards it, and address.
Now's the time, because it's going to keep coming up, and until you face it. So, what is the reality of the situation? Where does the conflict come from? Opening lines from this chapter. Sometimes things go bad between individuals. Anger and resentment block the energy. Division creates conflict. Progress is halted. So we have 2 things that are happening here in this chapter. Number 1, we have conflict. And 2, it's deeply affecting the mission, the purpose, the vision of the initiative. Right? So on both things should be important to the leader. 1, we want a more harmonious team, so we don't want resentments and conflict. And 2, we're not getting to our desired goal that we've all agreed to, because this blocks all progress.
You're not actually getting anywhere at that point. You start spiraling. Yeah, and I think leaders may at times feel drawn into that conflict within their groups, or within their families, or their work lives. And I think that pull can feel like, if I just get involved more, maybe I can help with that, or maybe I can try to solve that. But I think you make a wonderful point in this section around the importance of just observing that conflict.
Observing it, yeah. Observing the conflict and really understanding. In this chapter, we go to where's the core of the
Before
conflict.
acting, right? Really look at it.
Really look at it and don't get hung up. And you were just saying it, Rob. Don't get hung up on the story. If the leader gets hung up on the story, then you get lost in the story. But if you get down to the core, where did the conflict start? And you address it at its root level, you have an excellent chance of diminishing or diffusing the conflict. If you go to the core, address it at the core. And if you address it at the core, and this is the takeaway from this chapter, you're going to find out that somebody's hurting, somebody's being threatened, somebody's position or image is being diminished or threatened. That's what you're going to find at almost.
And it may take some digging to get there, though.
It
if
may
you have
take
to open some people up or redirect some energy, some emotion.
Yeah, no. In those, let's just use it as an example. We've had to reorganize, and your salary is going to be reduced, not increased. It happens. Reorganizations, people are fired, people are hired. Now, there's a money issue. I'm making less money than I did before. Is it going to deeply affect my lifestyle? How I could take care of my kids? Probably not in any way. But there's a personal and emotional hurt on that. That's the core. You're saying you're diminishing me. After all I've done, you're not giving me more. After all I've given, you're not. No. And that's what creates the conflict. So if I was a leader, and you talk about takeaways here, if I understood that that's where the conflict is going to come from, then I'm going to address that right from the beginning in a way where they're not going to get that analogy of and that hurt and say, okay, I just got to rough it out and we're going to get back to the old salary and here's the plan. But for now, we've had this situation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. And to actually see that, though, you need to take all the perspectives, without holding on to your own. And sometimes, try to look through the lens or stand in the shoes of other folks on your team and see how they're feeling and take that into consideration, right? I think too often a leader may come in with a solution already in their mind. To whatever problem it is, or within whatever realm of leadership we're talking about, within family, personal life, or work life, entrepreneurial projects. If you're leading, often you hear about a problem, the solution machine is going already, and it can be difficult to pause that sometimes, to take a moment to look at the playing field and see maybe how that solution could be made differently.
Yeah. But it's on the personal level, Rob. That's where people, when I say leaders are healers, that's the name of this chapter. What I'm saying is that you need to understand that you're going to be healing at the personal and emotional level. If you want to be you have to go in there with them. You have to, like I said, even if it's just to prevent the feeling of hurt. Because what are you healing? You're healing hurt. You're healing hurt feelings. Right. Look, every study ever done in management has shown that money is not the number one motivator of people in a group. Every study on management ever done has shown that recognition, that people sense self-esteem, the way they feel about themselves, is the number one element in team satisfaction, employee satisfaction, whatever the case may be. I'm not speaking from theory right now. I'm speaking from reality. Why people leave companies is not because you moved the cheese. Why people leave companies is because they got hurt. And what I want to be as a leader is I want to be a healer of that hurt. I want to give preventative medicine so that there is no hurt. That's part of being a healer. Take this so you don't have another relapse of whatever's bothering you. Right?
Right,
and it's going to be hurt on the personal level that I'm speaking of. And if you're uncomfortable with that, then you have to become more comfortable with it. You have to find a way to become more comfortable if you want to work in this team leadership type of format. Because people's feelings are, again, this is no avoiding this, they're going to be hurt through the way things are going, through something you said, through, like I said, logistics that seem to give them a message about who they are, what they're doing.
right, right. Any unknown variable in their life or yours, or a combination of the groups or the business's objectives, can start to hurt feelings, and which lead to that conflict. And I think recognizing that, forgiving and trying to heal or
Mm-hmm.
smooth over misunderstandings is a act of a leader, and not
Right.
giving in any kind of way. I think in at least in the corporate world, sometimes to give in or even to show that kindness can feel uh, incorrect. And that's, I mean, sometimes that's
That's
because
right.
the culture in that company kind of made it that way.
Absolute.
But you've got to
Absolutely.
kind of embody that yourself. You have to choose to be that, to
Mm-hmm.
be the, I guess, to use an old adage, right? Like, be the bigger person, right? You've got to try to lead,
Mm-hmm.
and drop your misgivings and part of the conflict immediately
Mm-hmm.
to try and heal the other.
And you bring out a really good point, and that is which is again our action step from these chapters. What's the action step? It's exactly what you just said, which is to be more understanding, to be more patient, to be more kind when somebody's going through something, when people within your organization are in conflict. And I've seen it, and I've seen it at its worst. Um,
And patience can often be hard to embody when you are leading something that you believe so passionately in, or when you found yourself in a leadership position. It's often because you cared so much about whatever it is that people are
mm-hmm,
doing, that I think patience can be forgotten, because it's just, you can be caught up in the passion of the project, or of the work itself. And
mm-hmm.
how can folks try to return to that mindset of patience, or remind themselves at times, to kind of put on that hat for a while,
Yeah.
instead of the task monkey, or the slave driver that some companies have,
Mm-hmm.
just the rough elements of corporate life that can really push patience out of the
Yeah.
limelight.
Yeah. How do you stay rooted in that healer role?
Yeah,
Um, I mentioned it before, and again, it's our process,
it's
which
an
is
internal or personal thing, huh?
observing yourself, when somebody comes says, "Well, I can't make it in today," um, and it's going to affect whatever initiative you're involved with. And instead of being angry, well, can't you come in for something? Like really, just watching how you respond to it, watching that. I find that initially, I don't always respond with the most high-minded leadership. Uh, it's only through observing my own process that I realize, like, wait a minute, this person isn't feeling well. Is it good to berate them for not coming in because they don't feel well? Like, there's nothing positive is going to come out of that. But
Just because
it's
you're maybe upset that because they're not coming in,
it's
XYZ
going
is
to
not going to get done.
and then I'm not going to look good, and I'm not going to get to my goals. Exactly, it's all
Uh,
selfishness, and
Very
yeah.
tough. And I think that it kind of goes back to that consciousness of your own actions, and and also that element of the subconscious kind of deciding what will happen. You need to kind of tell yourself too that you want to get better at patience, or you want to find kindness in this relationship or that relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
this business arrangement, before you can actually find it. So start telling yourself the story, I think, because before too
Yeah,
long, that contrast, if your actions are different than what you're doing, you start to feel some kind of way.
mm-hmm.
And I think that can kind of instill that change, or at least pull you in the direction that you'd like to go.
When you see it, it's hard to ignore the fact that you're not responding at the highest level, and just don't try to change that or judge that. Just observe it passionlessly. just completely emotionlessly, just look at it and go like, wow, Paul, you really, your initial response is not as a healer. Your initial response is, oh, wow, that screws things up. And let's look at that and not
Which
judge it.
maybe it
And
does, right? But maybe don't lead with that.
well, yeah, I know it does. I know it screws up things because you're not coming in today. But let me become a healer and say, like, because there's a good chance that person doesn't feel good about not coming in either. If they're dedicated, they're not going to feel good about not coming in either, just like me. So why berate them or get angry, and they'll take it as, anger towards them? Uh, let me let me be a healer, and let me be patient, like you said, patience and kindness and understanding that how people feel is affecting everything that they do. This is about just human understanding and being present for somebody when they're going through a tough time. And the appreciation of that will go, you're not doing it for that, but the appreciation for that is what creates loyalty, is what creates people to want to work the extra hour, to want to, hey, let's do it on Saturday. I know we'll find a way. That's where you get that from, because the leader is a healer. I think this chapter reflects probably as clearly as anything how consciousness plays into leadership. To be conscious that
Definitely
somebody's
does.
hurting, to be conscious that their anger, their conflict is not towards you, it's internal to them, and you're just getting a chance to experience it.
Right.
Um,
It just happens to be in your arena. I think that's a great way to kind of put a footnote on this one for us.
mm-hmm.
Um, for those watching, please, if when the leadership is feeling tough, or even when it's not, consider your role as a leader as healing. Or when you approach conflict that comes up with those that you lead, make sure you remember that you are there to heal and
Yes.
to resolve and dissolve that conflict.
Yeah, that's the meaning of the chapter. Very well said. Thank you, Ram.
Yep. And thank you all for watching. Join us on the next episode as we continue this journey through the book.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_the conversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.